in these module objectives, again, it's kind of those daily things, creating shapes, editing. You need pins for connectivity, so you're looking at properties and then wires, and then interconnect with path stitching, which will allow you to go from metal 1, it'll create the via for you, then go to metal 2, back and forth. And then halo blockages to be able to keep out metal 1 from going across something, or, different blockages. And then the ruler's got some new options so that you could be able to have a little smarter ruler. Here's your main menu. You're coming down from Create, and then you can split out Shape and Wiring, and then Instance, and you can see each of those that you would then want to be able to do. Notice you have Slot here now. So here's Create Shape. You got Rectangle. That's pretty straightforward. It'll ask you for corners. Polygon, it's going to ask you for points. Path, it's going to ask you for center lines. Circle, it's going to ask you for the circle and then the outside. And ellipse, it's going to ask you for a corner and the other corner, and as you drag that outside corner, you create the shape of the ellipse. And a donut's going to ask you for the center, the inside of the ring, and the outside of the ring. And that's the way it's going to make it. Now we want you to use Create Wire for the interconnect because it has separate sections, and each section can be handled separately because a path can only have one width for the entire length. And some of the routing and automated tools won't accept a path. So we want you to use Create Wire. So if you know the connectivity, go ahead and put the net name in there. And if you've selected metal 1, it will have fit in the width. And then also we have an automated tool that you can have it set so that when you tap on a particular pin, it will take the width. And this snap to pin center, that will also help you, so that as you go to connect to something, it will give you the really good connection so that you know you don't have any little gaps in between. So here's snap modes. So these are examples of any angle, and diagonal, orthogonal, and then this one, if you notice, this is L90X first, and so there's the first coordinate, and there's the second coordinate. And so then that's the way it would work around. It would fill in that corner. It would fill that in for you. Under Create Rectangle, see, we got some options here. So we can, we're going to draw it, and if we enable Smart Snapping, what that's going to do is say if I know I got a rectangle and I'm going to snap it to another of the same layer, then we'll know, oh, okay, we really want it to be connected, so it'll snap. If you want to go ahead and put the net name in there, this is a relative object design, so ROD. If you know that you want it to do that, you can give it a name. And then if you want that rectangle to be able to do slotting, then go ahead and put that in. Creating polygon, F3 will show any of these forms, not just polygon. And then you got snap modes, how you would like to create that polygon. And then the create arc part is that when you want to start an arc, wherever you are in your polygon moving along, say you want to make an arc that comes over this way, then when you click Create Arc, it's going to say, well, tell me how high or how far. And so what it wants to know is how far it is over, and then how tall do you want it. And so when you do the how far over, it could come up and say, oh, I don't know, that angle's not good. But as soon as you come back up here, it's going to say, I like that arc. You're all right. Now we have Create Shapes Path, but remember, if you're going to use some automated tools, place and route, that sort of thing, I think low-level cells, you know, where the path is going to be in a low-level cell, that's probably okay. But if you're going to use anything where that path might be in something that's going to be automated, like place and route, use the create wire. So here's path. So you got path options, and justification is center, right, and left. So wherever you drew what would be maybe the coordinates, could be the center line, could be the left edge, the right edge. There's the end type, truncate, round, flat. Do you want a rod object, slotting, and what mode? And if you want to allow acute angles, go ahead and check that. For Create Shape Circle, point at the center of the circle, point at the edge. Later on you'll see about dynamic measurement, and so you'll be able to see how the measurement is, or what the distance is, when you turn on dynamic measurement. So we'll show you that in a while. Create ellipse. First corner of the bounding box of the ellipse, and then opposite corner. So you can see how as you move that corner, it would change the shape of the ellipse. Create donut, point at the center, inner edge, outer edge. Yeah, notice here there's no forms, they just tell you, okay, this is what we're asking you for, and there you go. Okay, if you were wanting to create a contactor via, and you just had a rectangle of metal 1 and rectangle of metal 2, and you needed a contact in there, you could create via, and then you're in single mode, and you've got a via definition, metal 2, metal 1. And if you needed to change something, like you wanted to change rows and columns, you could do that. Save that as a variant in case you wanted to use it again later, because then it would be in the cyclic field here. Okay? You could change justification, you could change widths and lengths, row spacings, that sort of thing. But remember down here to let it compute things so that you'll be design rule correct. Okay. Okay, stack mode. You can say, if I have metal 1, I want to start at metal 1, and if I'm going to end at metal 4, you can say I'm ending at metal 4. And if you want the top rows and columns, you can assign that, and then you'll get a stacked via from metal 1 up through metal 4. In auto mode, if you had the same metal 1 and metal 2 as we had earlier, it would know that I've got a metal 1, I got a metal 2 via. I could put one there. But look at this check shape connectivity. It's going to also look and say, you know, if I can tell that I would create a short by putting that contact there, I'm not going to do it. So if you enable that, even though we're in L mode, it'll check and see if it knows there's a net assigned. It won't put it there. So here's where you could start making some of the special arrays of your cuts. So if you say create via single, and then we've come to rows and columns 9 by 9, and then compute enclosures, and then we look at cut pattern. See, we're cut patterns over here. Well, there's cut pattern. So it says via rows 9 by 9 pattern. Well, chessboard. And then repeat pattern. So even though the chessboard has a certain limitation, it's just going to go on and on and on and on. So it'll stay. Now if you need to change those rows and columns, you could change those rows and columns. You could change the pattern. And then if you wanted to make it totally manual, you could go in there and add or remove the pattern and then have it repeat. So here's a little bit about 45-degree segments. Notice here, as these two center lines connect, that we've made this end fill in that gap. So if they were flush, we'd have a notch there, and so you'd have a design rule violation. So that actually is taken care of by that particular space and that particular rounding or wedging of the tip. Now, wire stitching. What you've got is you're coming along here, and when it comes time to change, you just at this point or anywhere along here, you can right mouse, and then you get a form that'll pop up, and then you say, well, which via do I want? Where am I going? And you'd select, in this case, you would go down, metal 1, and so you'd get a metal 2, metal 1 via, and it would slide along this line so you could put it anywhere. So when you left click, there it is, and then you move away in metal 1, and then whenever you're ready to go back up or go from metal 1 to anywhere else, you could right click and choose another one to move to. And then you could also take a look at the alignment if you wanted to offset it. And we were talking about widths and wires. So here you are, we've come off of a pin. We started out with that particular width. Now at this point, we've made the corner, and we're going to change the width to 0.7. So this has allowed us to change the width of this segment, leaving those segments as they were. So we're going to create shape pins on this inverter. So there's our terminal names, in, out, VDD, VSS. We are going to keep these names, and then we're going to display terminal names. Okay, so we're on weak because in feeds this poly. So we place the pin, so a little rectangle there, and then we place the word in. Then we switch that to strong. Then we place the out pin and the word out, the VDD pin, and the VSS pin. And for those pins, you could do a left corner and right corner and put a pin all the way across. Now for shape pin, we're going to go all the way up through here. So notice that it's a poly set, so that's going to stay on weak. And then terminal names, we have a net, 0 through 7. So again, display terminal names in the mode, rectangle, input, output, and access direction none. So that just means that it's not set up for an automated tool. You would do it by hand, and you'd have a pin, but an automated tool, there's no access direction. So you would want to be careful about that. So you would put maybe perhaps left in this case. Okay, so what you would do in this case, you've got 8 pieces. So you'd come down here and you'd create that rectangle, place that, create the rectangle, place, and just work your way on up until you got up here, place a rectangle, and you're done. So create instance. You could type in the library, cell, and view, or if you go to browse, you could pick the library, cell, and view. It'll show you. And then you could close that, and you see the cell. And if you wanted to do rows and columns, you could. And if you wanted to actually space out any of that, you could change this default, and the default packs it, butts it up. So you could alter that if you need. And then if you would like to add a halo, enable that, and then you click on Define Halo, and it will bring that form up, and we'll show you that form shortly. And then at this point in the canvas, it would be asking you to put a coordinate. Where do you want to place this? And it would give you a image, or a ghost image outline, and it would show you, well, okay, here, where do you want this? And if it has a few items in it, you'll see the internal pieces, and you can line it up. So creating a halo, here we have halo, define halo. So here's your halo editor. And what kind of blockage would you like? So often it's a routing blockage, but it could be a fill blockage or a feed through blockage. And which layer do you want to block? And then notice here, material. You can choose all of the available materials, or you can limit that you don't want to be able to see all the materials. But at the moment it says all. So we will say we want routing, metal 1 and metal 2, and then actually we want it to just line up right on the edge. So we haven't given it a plus or minus offset. So you could under or over offset. So the halo could be just inside or it could be outside. Then you would OK, and then you would see your halos. Place and route objects. So under create, you can come down to place and route objects, and any of these you could bring up the forms, and any of those are available for you to create. So you're going to create that place and route boundary. Where do you want it? So you could say, I would like it around the selected set, or I would just want to make it using a polygon or a rectangle. And then if I want to define a halo, I can, which would go along with that place and route boundary. So when you're creating blockages, remember that's going to be different than a halo. So halo, blockage, close, but look at the difference here in the form. So create blockage. Down at the bottom we got manually. So you could say, let's do routing, metal 3. And then we want to create it manually. Okay. So when this form is active, the prompt is going to be showing you, asking you, okay, make the blockage. If you were to say, I want automatically create it, then what is it you want to use to create it? Is it the selected set bounding box? Is it the place and route bounding box? What objects or parts do you want to use to create that blockage? What's important here is this is Edit Blockage Properties. So there's a metal 1 blockage, and there's a metal 1 coming up to it. So the min spacing is 0.12. Now if there's a difference in how wide or how long this metal is, it makes a difference in selecting objects. So we're going to select one object at a time. So here we've got the cursor, and with the cursor in there, there's a pre-select. So you see the dashed line around the shape that will be selected. It's usually white, but for this slide we made it black. So if you left click, now what you'll see is that selected object is highlighted, and it'll be white. The highlight will be white. So now if you want to select a second object, you can go ahead and shift and then click inside the boundary of that shape. Now you have 2 of them. Now if you wanted to select all of the objects in an area with normally a full select, notice here where it says full select, if you start here and you left mouse drag to this position, all of these objects that are highlighted in black are completely surrounded, so they will be selected. This bottom object is not selected completely, so all of the vertices were not included in the selection area, so it was not selected. Okay, selection options. We've got full or partial. So here's selection controls. There's the mode, full or partial. And in that mode, we've got spine, which is a path or wire, via stack, and a mosaic or array partial selection. And do we want to repeat commands? So point selection controls, overlap or cycle. So here's the overlap mode. Do you want it in cycle or overlap? And if you're in aperture mode, it enables snap to objects. So if you're in aperture mode, it's like a gravity mode, and then here's how large the aperture. Area selection mode, full or partial. So when you do area select, the left mouse drag. Do you want full mode, partial mode? What things do you want to be able to select? And then auto store selected sets. How many maximum number of stored sets? And do you want auto store to be on? And then the maximum number of selected elements within a set. Highlight options. Here we show flat lines, pins, instances, and shapes. So this is net. So when you have a net selected or probe, what would you like highlighted? So here are the things. And then net probe hierarchy level. How deep do you want to let that probe go? And then under instance, what would you like? If an instance is selected, do you want the associated nets to be highlighted? Here, with a pin, select that pin. You also want to see the nets. Same for the shape. You want to see the nets. And then probe. When hovering over that object, do you want the object to be probed? That would be a dynamic probe. And then the layer that's going to be used, do you want to let it cycle between those 10 highlight drawing layers, or do you want to pick one and leave it on that one only. So in the canvas, here's the edit pull down. So here's all the commands that are in the edit. And then notice these with the little red arrow, they have another section that will pull out. Okay, in basic edit commands, we could say edit, move. And here, if we wanted to move that green shape, while the command started, it would say, select the shape you want to move. So we would have clicked inside that shape. Now, it'll ask for a reference point. So let's give it a reference point, say there at the corner. And then it'll say, what's the destination point? So you'll click over there, and it'll move. So it will then be done with that command. And if you have repeat commands on, it'll say, select something. And reference point, destination point. But if you had no command running, you could, as shown on this side, you could say, I want to, let's go over here for a second. Over here, you could select the green shape, and then if you hold down your left mouse and then drag that shape to the right and then let go, it will move, but it won't have a command running. So it would have started over here, you would have selected the green shape, you would have held down the left mouse, drag it over here, and let go. Okay? Alright, copy. So we're going to edit copy, start the command, and then it will say, show me what you want, select. So you left mouse here, drag down to here to catch all of those shapes. Then it would say, well, where do you want the reference point to be? So you could give it a reference point and a destination point. And a stretch. In the stretch mode, it's going to go into partial select. So it's going to say select an edge or a vertex. So if you bring your cursor right up to that edge, it'll select that edge and then it'll rubber band. And then you drag it over to wherever you want, and that's how far it'll stretch. So in the stretch form, we got snap modes, we've got keep guard ring ends connected, and we could also say that when we stretch things, we'd like to keep the wires connected. So lock angles, that looks pretty straightforward, that if we're in snap mode of all angles, we would like to keep the angles as they are. We don't want to let them bend. So chain mode, if you have all of the devices that are actually sharing diffusion, you could say I would like all of those to be moved or stretched. The ones that would be selected, or selected plus left, or selected plus right. And if you were to choose a specific distance, you could then just apply that distance, and you wouldn't have to give a reference and a destination point. Okay, for existing shapes, we can say advance, reshape. Here's the one that's existing. We will say reshape. It will ask for which shape. So we point to it, and then we enter the new coordinates, and then enter, and it will, you can toggle back and forth between those two shapes. And when it's on the shape you like, then you say that's the one you want, and it will keep it, and that one will be removed. For modify corner, if you had example this one, all four orthogonal corners, you could say radial, and it would say which corner, and you'd point to it, and then where, how far, and then it would create those shapes. Same for chamfer. So basic chop, it would ask for a cutter shape or a line, and then in this shape you would use that rectangle to indicate where you want it to cut. You could say, I want it to remove the shape, or I just want a cut line. Notice here we've used the cutter shape and removed that shape and made it a donut. So advanced size, here's the starting size of 5 and the ending size of 7. So in reality we would only need to add 1 because each edge gets the number. So if this were 5 across and this were 5 high and we sized it plus 1, each edge would get 1, so now you would have 7. It will also use negative numbers, so if you said -1, then it would be 3 in each direction. So we'll use basic, merge. Here's our 3 shapes. As you select them, they will begin to merge, and there's your finished product. So convert to Polygon, we start with a circle, and earlier on when you set up your preferences, in this case we've set that we would like 8 sides to our polygon shapes that are converted. So as soon as you convert that, it will have 8 sides. Advanced split. Notice that on the left side of this split line is what we're going to have move. So when you split, you would start on this left side. That'd be the first, second, third, and fourth coordinate. And this is also at a 45-degree angle, because then that will hold these spacings at where they are. So what happens is where it cuts, it begins a corner. And then since we have these contacts, they will actually slide along this new horizontal edge. So wherever you want to slide them along there, when you click left mouse, that's where they'll stay. If you happen to go the other direction, so if you started down here, went over the top and down, it would be useless because the part that would move would be these outside edges. So it would not work properly. So this has to be on the left side of this cut line. If you want to attach a text to an object, you would use Advanced, Attach, Detach. So with this particular example, we have a power line and we have a text, VDD. So what we'll do is we would say attach, and then it will ask, where's the parent? Okay, there's the parent. Which one's the child? That one's the child. Okay, now when you position the child right there, it will follow the parent. So when that parent moves, the child will stay in that same relative position. So if you needed to move this VDD down to the edge, that'd be okay, because you could move the child with respect to the parent, but when you move the parent, the child will follow. So advanced move origin. So here you've spent time making that transistor, and that's okay that you didn't pay attention to where the 0, 0 was, because there's move origin. So if you want to create the origin right there, that's the command. You could say move origin. It'll give you the horizontal and vertical axis, line it up to what you want, and then click. And that will recalculate everything to be 0, 0. Yank and paste. If you want to copy something, like a core sample, you could say, out of this transistor, I would like to take this section of it and use it somewhere else. So you would say basic yank. You would do left corner, right corner, and then this piece would be yanked out. And you would have it in a yank buffer, and then you would take it to wherever you wanted to go and paste it. Creating a ruler. Here's the things that you can think about. Do you want to see both the distance and the tick marks? So right here in the general, we've got both, and then we got ruler and distance. So there's where you'll decide that. And then, would you like to take this ruler along and save it so that next time you open, it'll be there? Well, create ruler as a savable object. Now, would you like to have a multiple segment ruler so that when you measure 3 distances along a straight line, you have them as separate rulers, but in that straight line? Well, here's multi-segment ruler. And we'll demonstrate that to you. So here's the snap target. What would you like to snap to? Edges, centers, corners, and then the aperture and depth. How wide an area would you like to snap, and how deep in the hierarchy? And then, do you want to know the midpoint? So if you were to say midpoint of distance between 2 targets, and it will show you that. And then which snap mode? So here's snap mode, orthogonal. So in the Create Ruler Display tab, there's your visualization settings. So font size, small, medium, large. The background color, choose what that would be. You can bold the font, and if you like the same color for all the rulers, you could select that. And then the fonts would rotate between 10 available colors. But if you want the measurement to stay just with one, you can set that. But here's what you could set. You could set the width, the color, the line style. Snapping options. Snap target. We have none, edges, points, edges and points. So at the moment, notice these are grayed out. So as long as nothing's there for points or edges, it's not active. So if you were to select edges, then this edges field becomes active, and you can say all edges, or edge, or just center line. If you were to select points, then you could say all points, vertex, nexus, edge, midpoint. And remember, nexus is the midpoint of a box. So like this Create Ruler box right here would be the nexus. Example of smart ruler snapping. The orange ruler is a saved ruler. The red ruler is not saved. So in this case over here, we've gone between those two vertex. Here we've gone between center line. There we've gone between edge. So there's examples of the way that it will snap. And which one of these is going to be saved? The orange one. So if that was something that you wanted to keep, perhaps you were using that particular measurement during a discussion, then you would probably want that to be printed. So go ahead, make it saved. Here's quick align, and we're going to say we want to align a selected set, but we want to retain some original spacings and offsets. So we're going to say, here is our original selected set, so those 5 pieces have been selected. And then this is the edge that we want to align, and then this is the edge we want them all to be aligned to. And here's our result. So we brought all 5 of these as they were into alignment with this one. Here's the answer to the question that may have come up just a moment ago. What if you want all 5 of them to line up? So here we've selected all of them. So we've got all 5 of them selected. And then we single click on the alignment edge. We could pick that edge, but in this case we pick the center. And then on the destination you double click. So since this is what we want to line up with, we double click with the center or the nexus, and then all of them line up their nexus with this one. Now it could have equally well worked if we'd clicked this edge and then double click that edge. Every one of these edges would have lined up with this edge. In the copy command, we've got the choices for snap mode, and also if we want to keep copying, go ahead and enable that boolean. Now copy, you could also use that for shapes. So if you wanted to copy a layer, say from a implant to a diffusion, you could copy that just by enabling change to layer, and then select the layer that you wanted to change it to. The change mode, notice here, if you say all, it will keep the chained instances together during the copy. You could also just say anything that is selected, copy that. And then array, if you wanted to copy this one piece into an array, you could give the rows and columns. If you do that, then it will ask for the source of the first row, and then the spacing, and then the source or the placement for the columns. As you go down farther, you could say, I would like to copy my source to these coordinates. Or you could say, I want to copy them with this delta offset, and if I'm continuing to copy, I would like to copy with this spacing, or an exact overlap says that you want it exactly on top of the source. And then if you do have a step size, you can put that in there as well. And then when you click apply, that particular setting for the form will occur. As well, you can specify whether you want to rotate, or if you want things sideways, or if you'd like them upside down. Repeat copy. That's just a little bit simpler than the other copy command. So here we can say repeat copy, and at first let's look at snap mode and delta. So the delta would be if you would like it to repeat at a specific coordinate offsets, you would say apply XY. And then notice here, if you use the period key, you could use it to step and repeat. Again, you have rotate sideways, upside down. Now, release direction. Notice here that release direction option disengages the XY offset for the placement. So if you wanted to just place, move it anywhere, place, anywhere, offset, place, then that would be release direction. Here's an overview for Lab 3. We have an empty cell open. Let's say create, shape, rectangle. So There we've got one, and we're showing X, Y length and area. That's for an N implant. Remember, under options, we got dynamic display. And here's what we have turned on. Area, length, width, X length, Y length. And then that was N implant. So let's see if we did P implant. And we got P implant. Let's do create shape polygon. So we'll get a polygon going there. Okay. How about if we say create path? So what's a path going to show us? Got length and area. And how about the circle? What would that show us? We're going to look down here. It says point at the center of the circle, and then point at the edge. So there's the area. How about create shape ellipse? So point at the first corner of the bounding box. So I got the bounding box, and then based on where I go with that bounding box, that's going to be the shape of the area of the ellipse. Okay. So if we say create shape donut, point at the center, now point at the inner edge, point at the outer edge. Okay. So there we've made those shapes. Let's go up to create wiring wire. We'll choose metal 1, and we'll notice at the bottom down here, point at the first point. So we are getting the technology file default for metal 1. If we click metal 3, now we see we could put a net name, we could change the width, snap mode. Let's close that for a moment. In these wires, you can have separate widths for the separate segments. So let's come here and we will right mouse up to metal 2. So now we've gone up to metal 2, and left mouse and then right mouse to metal 3. And wherever we place that via, there we go, metal 3. And let's, instead of just going up or down one, let's say select via. So we could go up to 4, go down to 3, 2, or 1, or poly. Let's go down to poly. So now we have a stacked via, and we are moving down in poly. So we have gone all the way through those and created a stack. And then we can see the differences as we move through. So that's wire editing, and it's also path stitching. So we were afforded the benefit of having the vias provided for us. So you can do an enter to finish that, or a double click. Let's do a fit. And then if, let's remove a couple of things here. Left mouse drag. And we need to escape. Left mouse drag. Selected them. Delete. Okay. Let's say create instance. So in the create instance form, we can browse. And if we can search for particular cells, like if we know we wanted to go to ADC, as soon as we put that in, then we show all of the ADCs. Also, if we go to categories, we have them in here. So we could say ADCs, and they're all there. So let's pick this ADC decode and double click left mouse, and we've got this nice tall skinny ADC decode. So if we wanted to put it, you could see the line there, but notice here you could make a mosaic, so you could make an array of it. You could put a halo around it that would mask out perhaps metal 1 or metal 2. So let's just go ahead and let's notice that on our, let's go ahead and move that. Notice here on X we're at about 3 or 5, something like that, and Y was 0. So let's come down here, and in this CIW, let's say that the X is going to be 8 and Y is 0. Okay, then let's do fit, and just like that, fit, and we'll hit escape, and Shift F. So there's our really tall cell, and down here is all the little pieces we were just playing with. So we hit fit, there's our big cell, and then if we wanted to zoom into it, we get right mouse and drag. And then if we said Shift Z, we're zooming out. If we Control Z, we're zooming in. If we use the Tab key and then hit a new center, we've moved the center of the screen. We can hit fit. So let's get rid of that. Delete that. And then let's say fit. We'll go down short again, and we'll say Control Z, closer, Shift Z, farther out. Okay, let's get something to make an array with. So let's create instance. We'll go to Browse, and let's go to this GSC lib. We've got some standard cells, so let's pick that standard cell. We'll close that. Here's our standard cell, and look at our mosaic. Let's say we want 3 rows and 4 columns, and then click back inside. Then when we move out, we could Control Z, move out, select, Control Z, move out, Shift Z, there we go. So now we've got them all but together. So we can say F3 to bring that form back up. Now based on this distance, that's the default distance. So if we just place that, and we can zoom in, and you can see that they're all abutted. So there, each of them is abutted. So let's go back out. And F3, bring the form up, and then let's change this to say 5, and then click in another one. Notice where they're going. So now we've got a distance of 5. Let's bring the F3 back up. Just change this to a distance of 10. Click in another one. Come back in, and use the arrow to select, use the arrow to come up. Now look what we've got. And then let's do F3 once again, and let's say rotate, and then come back in, and notice that the entire array has rotated around 0. So they didn't individually rotate. At the 0 point, the entire array rotated. So that's just a little bit of showing you how things will work for creating shapes and instances. And you can go ahead and create those shapes, create your transistors, and the kinds of things that you normally do throughout your day.